Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4 o'clock on Thursday. That's that time of the week we come together to make sure that we remember that we're going to get through this and we're going to get through it together. I know Kentuckians have worked really hard these past months in trying to protect one another and getting out to get vaccinated. So today, I hope to reward you with a very short update. Let's start out with vaccinations. As you all know, this is the most important thing we can be doing right now. We are in an absolute race with variants to prevent any type of fourth surge and make sure we defeat this virus once and for all. If we can put up table one, the good news is we are now over 1.5 million Kentuckians who have received at least their first dose of their shot of hope. 1,510,082 Kentuckians now having at least their first shot of the vaccine. That is really exciting. Again, you look back on our first case being March 6th of last year, and here we are, just barely into April. It's incredible. 3 highly effective, safe vaccines and 1.5 million Kentuckians having received at least their first shot of hope. Let's now look at table 2 that shows you how we're doing. So last week, even with a lot of people traveling for spring break, and I hope y'all were safe, we vaccinated 125,210 Kentuckians. Now, that's actually a pretty good week when you look back on it being pretty similar to the week before and the week of March the 2nd. The difference is we've shown that we can do up to 200,000 people a week, and our overall allocation is getting bigger. So while we vaccinated 125,210 new Kentuckians this last week, we received about 214,000 doses. So what that means is there are open appointments. There are open appointments, not because we're not vaccinating still at a steady pace, but because we're getting more vaccine. And so we need people to get out there and to sign up. And we're going to be talking Monday about a goal that we can shoot for if we hit where we can remove any capacity restrictions for events under, even up to and under 1,000 Kentuckians. So there are goals, and again, we're gonna be able to talk about it in depth on Monday, where we can get to that point where, while we still may be needing to wear masks, whether it's our restaurants, our bars, our offices, and the rest, we can get back to that 100% capacity. It is all dependent on how quickly and how many people we can vaccinate. So in doing that, the question is, how do we get there, and how do we get there as fast as possible? Well, a big part of it starts Monday, because this Monday, Kentucky's largest drive-through vaccination site will open at Cardinal Stadium in Louisville. The site, run by U of L Health, is projected to provide up to 4,000 vaccinations each day. Kentuckians can pre-register now, and there are over 11,000 appointments still open for that first week. There are just a few on that Monday, but right now you can sign up, anybody 16 and up who has not been vaccinated, and get in this next week at Cardinal Stadium. If we want to get to herd immunity, this site is going to be one that pushes us very, very quickly. You can make an appointment by visiting uoflhealth.org or by calling 502-681-1453. Today, we have a message from U of L's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jason Smith.
Opportunity to be here to support the Commonwealth here at the University of Louisville and the U of L Health Max vaccination site. As you can see behind me, we have thousands of appointments available. We've got plenty of lanes to help make this convenient and efficient for you if you come down to our site to get this vaccine. Now, I want to reiterate how important this is for our community to make sure that we overcome COVID. It's been a long year for all of us, and I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to get out to our neighborhoods, to get out to the city of Louisville, to the surrounding counties, and offer this vaccine up for everyone to take the opportunity to protect their family and protect their friends. The vaccine itself is safe and effective. It gives you the opportunity to get 1 or 2 shots in order to get through this pandemic with relative ease. It's highly effective, greater than 90% efficacy. It's effective against all the variants that we've seen thus far, and it's really the most important step that we can take to make sure that we are protecting ourselves and that we have the opportunity to get back to a more normal life for everyone involved. We have got plenty of appointments coming up in the upcoming week. I want to offer this up to everyone, and I want to say thank you from all the volunteers here in Louisville, from U of L Health, from U of L. I want to say thank you from all of our volunteers around the country that are here working, from Arizona and from Florida that have come in to help staff this site. And I want to say thank you from and to the National Guard from here in the Commonwealth that's protecting us and providing traffic and support for this site as well. Everything we've been doing in the past few months has led up to the opportunity for us to be here and has led up for the opportunity for you to come down and be a part of this and get your vaccination. So I urge all of you, please, step forward, help your community, help yourself out, and be part of these vaccination efforts. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you down here at our vaccination site.
I want to thank Dr. Smith. And if anybody is still wondering whether these are safe, Dr. Smith was the first person vaccinated in Kentucky. It was roughly 5 months ago. He is still standing there. And despite the environment that he works in, helping and treating COVID patients, he is COVID free. And from everything we have seen, even when we have seen variants get into even areas that previously were really concerning, long-term care and others, those that have been vaccinated either don't get the virus or don't get very sick, and they certainly don't die. And so it is really important. We can defeat COVID. I think we can substantially do so in the next couple months, but only if we get people out to get vaccinated. And everybody watching, listening, hearing, that the media will get the word out to, that will get this through social media. I'm going to go through now about 5 or 6 places where I know there are combined 16,000 appointments next week, 16,000 Kentuckians we can get in. Listen, we want to do this. We want to end the restrictions. We want to get back to a normal life. We want to get closer to taking off that mask. We want to get rid of capacity restrictions. We want to defeat COVID. We don't want our family members to die anymore. We want to get back to doing things in person. This is how we do it. So if we can put up the top sites again, U of L Health, Cardinal Stadium, next week, 11,000 open appointments still available. The Greenwood Mall in Bowling Green, 2,000 appointments available in the coming week. If you are in the Bowling Green area and you have not gotten your vaccine, you can get on right now, sign up. You will have an appointment next week. In Fayette County, the Kentucky Horse Park still has 1,800 openings for next week. Anywhere around that area is right off 75, pretty close to 64, getting on to 75. Again, you can get your vaccine next week. Christian County Health Department, Western Kentucky, we need to see more people getting the vaccine. 1,000 open appointments. And the Pikeville Medical Center on the eastern side, also 1,000 open appointments right there. We can go a long way towards getting our population vaccinated and moving to defeat COVID once and for all. As we do this, we need you to sign up for whichever vaccine is available. Specifically, we can't have people waiting for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The reason is we are not getting nearly the amount of it that we expected to by this point. So in this coming week, only 600,000 Johnson & Johnson vaccines were shipped nationwide, meaning we're only receiving 7,800 of them. This is a drop from about 65,000 doses last week. So we don't have specific numbers on what we're going to see the week after that. But if individuals, Kentuckians, wait on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, we might not win the race against the variants. It's going to take us longer to be able to fully ease the restrictions that we all want to get rid of. So come on, get out there, get your vaccine. Look at Pfizer. It's 2 shots, but it's been proven in the field to be more effective than even the trials that they did. These are good, solid vaccines that keep your family members from dying and that ultimately we need to get to defeat this thing. The other reason we need it is the variants continue to grow. We now have, of the B117, that is the UK variant, 111 known cases. The B1427, one known case, that is in Carroll County, and the B1429, one case, and that is in Franklin County. So 113 total of the known variants of concern we have identified here in Kentucky. All right, today's COVID report. I told you we're going to move through fast today. 645 new cases, and that's the lowest in about a month. That's actually a pretty good sign. Our hospitalization, ICU, and ventilator numbers all down from yesterday. Hospitalization down 6, ICU down 10, on a ventilator down 13. Our positivity rate also down 2.81%. That is good news. We have 16 total deaths to report today. All of them came out of the local health department reporting method, though only 2 of them are from April, 6 of them are from March, and others were earlier. Again, what that suggests is that we see a slowing of deaths, a decrease in the most recent deaths. That's, folks, got to be because of the vaccinations, and we can impact it even more if more people get vaccinated. So today's new deaths, which is what we've been calling them, include a 41-year-old man from Carroll County who died in December, a 68-year-old man from Christian County who died in late March, a 54-year-old man from Davis County who died April the 6th, a 73-year-old woman from Hopkins County, late March, an 88-year-old woman from Hopkins County, late March, a 62-year-old man from Hopkins County, late March, a 59-year-old woman from Jefferson County, that's back from July, a 73-year-old woman from Jefferson County from August, an 80-year-old woman from Jefferson County, October, an 87-year-old woman from Jefferson County, September, a 61-year-old man from Jefferson County, December, 64-year-old man from Jefferson County, that's back in last July, and a 77-year-old man from Jefferson County, December. Also a 77-year-old woman from Laurel County, that's from November, 76-year-old man from Ohio County from really just a couple of days ago, and then a 45-year-old man from Oldham County in November. Let's switch to good news. What used to be one of the hardest things that we talked about, and now is almost one of the most joyful, long-term care facilities. Only one new resident testing positive. That is the power of vaccines. 5 new staff testing positive. Remember, a significantly higher percentage of residents of long-term care got the vaccine than staff members. So what we used to see is a huge number of positive cases of residents, a smaller number of positive cases from staff because they were wearing the best PPE that they could get their hands on or that we could supply. And now those have flipped because what the vaccine and the protections have done is truly incredible. No new deaths to add to the long-term care piece. That is really wonderful news. All right, now we will have a UI report from Amy Cubbage. A couple of really significant things. To preview a little bit what she's going to talk about, the criminal cyber attacks are massive, not just here, but all over the United States. And they've moved from hoping to get lucky to trying to directly steal the money of people who qualify for and are being paid. It is going to require us, along with virtually every other state, to take significant steps. These are unavoidable steps, and they're not brought on by speed of processing. They're brought on by the sophistication of the criminal attacks themselves and the fact that we cannot be sending money to these criminals. The number one issue we now face in UI is the level of fraud and crime. It both is the number one issue because we don't want people stealing anybody's money out there. But it's also the number one reason because it makes it a lot harder to find the real claims when they are covered up by the number of fraudulent ones. So with that, with some news on that, and then some positive news on our office openings across the state, Amy Covich.
Thank you, Governor. So we orient everyone and give a little more background about the massive amount of fraud that is hitting unemployment across the United States. I think, as we've said before, with the massive amount of federal dollars that have gone into the unemployment programs during the pandemic and that is now extended until Labor Day, UI systems across the United States have become targets of massive fraud. And it's fraud that's not the kind that UI systems have traditionally been able to detect and deal with. Most of the fraud in the past has been one-off kind of fraud where someone files and they lie about why they were discharged, that kind of fraud. This is organized fraud, often cyber criminals who are located overseas, and it includes both the filing of fraudulent claims as well as now moving into attempts to break into existing accounts and steal the benefits that are being awarded to proper claimants. So we have been seeing these kinds of issues across the country. If we could pull up the first slide from Kansas. As you can see from Kansas has had a problem dealing with fraud. They recently had to take down their UI system, put on new controls, and bring it back up, and were able to stop 240,000 attempts at fraudulent filings and hacks in the first few weeks alone. In Washington State, recently had a data breach that affected 1.3 million claimants. In Illinois, they have had over 1 million attempts at fraudulent filings there. And unfortunately for Illinois, a lot of successful fraudulent filings that have required them to put new controls on their system. And the same thing in Colorado, where there has been ongoing problems, and they have paid out multiple billions of dollars in fraudulent benefits, but have been able to stop just as much in payments. There have also been data breaches in Illinois, Vermont, Colorado, and Ohio. So these are problems that everyone is seeing. They're all across the nation, and these attacks are going to continue. So we are going to announce some new steps today. We hate that we have to do this to make things more difficult, but these criminals are relentless. They will not stop. And so, as the governor said, the biggest issue we face now is stopping fraudulent claims and as well as attempts to hack in the system. It takes, unfortunately, time away from processing valid claims, but they are not going to stop, and they're getting more sophisticated and, as I said, more relentless. So we are announcing today that the UI system is going to shut down as a result of some recent activity so that we can make sure that no one can gain unauthorized access to customer accounts. Unfortunately, what they are doing is, since we have had 4-digit PINs, they have been able to use computerized automated processes to try to guess what those PINs are. The PINs are encrypted on our ends. There has not been a release of PINs in that sense, but for instance, we had over close to 4,000 users whose PINs were 1, 2, 3, 4, had about 1,500 whose PINs were 2020, 1,200 of them were set to 1111. When you've got a PIN like that, it's easy for a computer criminal to simply set up a program that allows you to try that PIN across all of the accounts. So that's what we've been seeing. So what we are now required to do is we are going to shut down the UI systems, the public-facing systems, for 4 days, starting tonight at midnight until the end of the day on Monday, opening back up again on Tuesday morning. You will not, unfortunately, be able to file new claims or request benefits. If you needed to file a new claim during that time, we will be able to backdate your claim for you. If you needed to ask for benefits during that time, you will be able to get those benefits. No one will lose out on their chance to request those weeks of benefits. And the small good news in that is our internal systems will remain operational. So we will be still processing claims and doing work on our end. So if you have still access to the system, if your PIN has not been reset, you can still request until midnight. But letters are going to be going out starting tomorrow to all active UI claimants with a new 8-digit PIN. The systems will be back again available on Tuesday, and everyone is going to have to re-register your account. Even if you recently went through that process on the new portal, all of that is going to be wiped out, and you're going to have to re-register for the first time, for the first time at uiclaimsportal.ky.gov or through the link at the kcc.ky.gov website. If we can pull up the slide. Claimants are going to have to go through a little bit more of a process now to log into the site. You're going to have to create a new 12-character password that will require a mix of letters, numbers, and special characters. We're going to have to do two-factor authentication, which means you're going to have to verify your email address. You will be emailed a code, and then you will have to come back to the website and put that in so we can verify that that is indeed your email. And for the first time you log in, you will have to use the new 8-digit PIN that will be mailed to you in a letter. The telephone claiming system, if you use that, the first time you claim, you will need to use the new 8-digit PIN. Once you get in and get re-registered, review all of the information on your account to make sure it's correct. If the account information is not correct, right now we have suspended all bank account changes, but if it's not correct, you can request a paper check. New claimants can put information in for your bank accounts. We're going to be sending out a press release on this and posting more information on the homepage as we work through this process. And we are also filing this afternoon a data breach notification. We don't have any evidence that data was taken from the system, but because your information might have been accessed in an effort to be completely clear and transparent, we are going to do this notification and provide you information that you need to protect yourselves. So one thing you don't want to do, if you were an active claimant, once you re-register for the system, you don't need to file a new claim. Once you get in and register, it will associate you with your existing claim. Now, for a little bit of good news, the new appointment system rolled out yesterday for our in-person appointments at 1 p.m. Things were smooth and successful for the most part. Claimants have made over 9,500 appointments for April 15th through April 30th. There was one glitch. Unfortunately, the appointment system listed the Franklin County telephone appointments as in-person appointments. We're going to be reaching out to people who inadvertently got scheduled for those and get them scheduled at times that work. The next round of appointments will soon be available. The appointments for May 3rd will become available next Monday at midnight, much like the telephone appointments do, and each day the next set of appointments will roll out. And again, these are preparing for our 13 career centers to reopen next week on the 15th. Please remember, if you have an appointment, wear a mask at all times during your appointment. Stay in your vehicle until 5 minutes before the appointment. We can't have lines outside. We know the COVID numbers are getting better, but the variants are out there, and we have to make sure that we take all the precautions we can so that our staff can stay there and healthy and stay open. You'll require a photo ID to get in the building. Your temperature will be taken. And please remember, we're going to do everything we can to try to resolve your issue while we're there. But sometimes it may require that you fill out some more paperwork and send it in, or we take something back to the office. So you might not get your issue 100% resolved, but they will do their best to get as close as possible during your appointment. And that's it.
All right. So obviously a lot there, a big step to have to shut down the system until the end of Monday. But given that this sophisticated attack is getting into people's accounts and could in fact take money that was otherwise going to them, it is a step we absolutely have to take. Not taking it is not an option. We can't allow people to switch bank account numbers, ultimately steal the state's money, and prevent those that are entitled to receive these dollars for the help they need to have that money diverted. All right, we'll open it up to questions. We got a long list today. We'll start with Chad Hedrick from WKYT.
Hey there, Governor. A question about maybe the hesitancy, I guess you could call it, among the younger demographics to get vaccinated. We saw when the vaccine rollout first started, a lot of public events to motivate the older populations to get vaccinated. Are you trying to come up with ways to reach the younger groups, the 20-somethings, to appeal to them to get vaccinated and take up these thousands of appointments that are now available across the state?
It's a good question. With our younger Kentuckians, I don't think what we see is hesitancy. I think what we see is more of indifference, meaning that they're not as worried about COVID as other demographics, because to date, it has certainly hurt younger Kentuckians at a much lower rate. The outcomes have been much better, but that is not the case with the variants that in multiple states are hospitalizing more young people. We are doing more digital advertising now than ever before. We are working to reach our younger people with a message that we believe can resonate with them from people that we think they'll want to hear from. We're also working with our universities, and ultimately we'll also be reaching out to some of our schools to try to get there. Again, it's only been a week that those 16 and up have been able to sign up, and it was a week where we had spring break. So I'm really interested in seeing, Chad, where this week goes, especially with our younger Kentuckians. Now, I am anecdotally seeing and hearing about a number of younger Kentuckians, especially in high school and in college, that are excited about getting it. I think this week will prove it out, but we're getting to a point where we're going to have to push and try harder, innovate, incentivize more now than ever before. And we reach this point a lot faster, which is a good thing, because we vaccinated people a heck of a lot faster than the initial schedules had. But it's going to get tougher and tougher to hit the goals that we want to hit. And that's why Monday we're going to be talking about what it'll take to get back to a semblance of normal. And hopefully that's a big motivator too. It certainly would be for me. Next, we have Catherine Collins from WLEX.
Hi, Governor. We've been seeing some misinformation going around on social media about the mask mandate, with people saying it's been lifted here in Kentucky. Can you respond to that and just give an update on the status of your mandates right now?
Yeah, the mask mandate is in full effect via executive order. It means it is the law. Remember, the legislature tried to pass a couple bills that would have stopped it, and it was enjoined in court. Judge has an order saying the mask mandate's in effect. Then something else was tried just yesterday. The judge put out another order saying the mask mandate is in full effect. Folks, don't get your news from somebody that you don't know on Facebook, especially with some group that's espousing personal or political views. This pandemic is not political. It means you ought to get news from trusted sources like the television, print, and radio stations that are asking today. Thank you for the question. It's really important these last couple months, because I hope that's what it's going to take to truly get ahead of this. That again, we can keep trying and doing the right things. We are so close. Let's not leave people behind. Tom Latek from Kentucky Today.
Good afternoon, Governor. And I've got two. For the first one is, if Amy could say how many suspected fraudulent claims that you've had. She mentioned some of the numbers in the other states. I'm curious as to what the numbers are here in Kentucky. And also, I see shortly before you started, I got the notification that you vetoed Senate Bill 48. the personal identifiable information. But your veto message, you said you were going to sign 267, which has some very similar provisions. And I'm concerned that if I identify someone as the governor of Kentucky, lives in the governor's mansion, or Franklin Circuit Judge so-and-so is at the Franklin County Courthouse, I'm going to be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. And you answer.
Man, you just told everybody where I live, Tom. No, 48 and 267 are different in some fundamental ways, which is why I signed one and vetoed another. 267 applies when someone publishes someone's personal information in an attempt to harass or intimidate, abuse, or threaten. In other words, it requires that you are doing it for that purpose. And given that it tries to create a crime, it's what's required under the law. It's called a mens rea. You know, certainly as a member of the press, telling a story, talking about where people can contact to express their views. Now, that's not covered under 267. And that's the reason that I believe that signing 267 is legitimate, because people shouldn't put where people's kids go to school, or where they are in the afternoon, or someone's home phone number, if the whole purpose is to harass or threaten or intimidate them, which we have seen at different times. 48 would not have required any of that. And 48 also would be impractical in that we can't go into certain records as different state agencies and do some of the redactions that would be required. So I think this is the right place to be, knowing people out there at different times have used social media to actually encourage people to hurt other people. You know, and some of these hate groups publishing very specific information that put people at risk. So we think that this is a way that obviously preserves freedom of speech, while also giving people a level of protection that they otherwise have in other areas, and now applying it to the digital world itself. And then I'll ask Amy to come up and respond to the other question.
With regard to the scope of what we're talking about, there's a couple of different layers here. We've talked a lot recently about the fraudulent claims that have been filed. I don't have a total number, but just as an example, I believe there were close to probably 200,000 fraudulent, just fake claims filed that we caught in February. Would have been more in January, had a big ramp up in February, and then of course more in March. I don't have the March numbers handy. Now, this recent attack involved attempts to figure out claimants' PINs, and then those PINs someone went in and reset the PINs, and then later went in with the reset PINs and tried to redirect bank account information. There were approximately 300,000 PINs reset. Those were not all current claimants. We don't have that many people claiming right now. Some of those could have been for claimants from several years ago who are not currently claiming. Some smaller amount had bank account information changed. So that's the scope of what we're looking at now. We're still drilling down on the numbers where the accounts were changed, and that is one reason why we have put a stop on, at least temporarily, the PIN changes and bank account changes, and now are just taking the system down altogether to require now the stronger PINs.
All right, next up we have Stu Johnson from WEKU.
Yes, thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, and I think Amy may have to come back up for this question. The term that you've used is massive in terms of the fraudulent claims, and when you hear that, I think that can give the impression that there's been some success with fraud. Is there any idea how much unemployment has gone to undeserving hands?
We don't have those numbers yet because it's so recent, and admittedly, it's pretty sophisticated. What this shows is that what it takes to do one of these attacks, to commit this crime, is really significant. The amount of servers, the amount of activity. I mean, this is an organized effort, and not simply, a couple people sitting in a specific area. What it means is they've got full bot attacks, that are churning this at such a high rate. So we don't yet know the number of specific individuals impacted, and the challenge in that, like Amy said, is we don't have 300,000 people or nearly 300,000 people that could be impacted. And so how many of these are old claims that nothing's being paid out on and wouldn't go to? And then how many of the ones that had the reset, again, are current and not older? And then how many of the ones that have had the bank accounts changed? And then how much of benefits, are represented in each of those? So we don't have those numbers yet, but just the fact that it's happening at this scale means we got to stop it. And that's what this is about. And we've got to make sure that this type of attack, where they basically run through every possible 4-digit PIN for these claims, that they can no longer do that. And so I know that this can be a real pain to those getting benefits, but it's necessary so people don't steal their money. Melissa Patrick from Kentucky Health News.
Hi, Governor. Do you think that some of the obstacles reported by the Courier-Journal that have limited urban Black residents' access to the vaccine, like lack of transportation, are the same challenges for rural whites? Or do you think politics plays a bigger role in the rural whites' decision to get vaccinated?
Well, I think we see in different numbers that are out there, different portions of the state may have some higher hesitancy. Unfortunately, we're seeing in Western Kentucky, there appears to be a higher hesitancy compared to Louisville or Lexington or even in Eastern Kentucky. I think we have access issues. I think we have hesitancy. And again, we talked about that. I think we have some indifference, some people who will take it if it is easier, or if it's just an opportunity that's there, but it's not top of mind for them. But we've got to reach all of these folks. And we've reached the phase that we always knew. And Melissa, I know that you knew we'd reach it, where we have to push more vaccine to where people are on an everyday basis. So what we are doing right now is working in the near future on taking down some of our mass vaccination sites, but pushing those vaccines out to more independent pharmacies, grocery stores, and others, where people would regularly go, instead of people being drawn to it. So I think what you're going to see is we're going to add at least a couple hundred more sites around the Commonwealth. The federal government's program is doing that too, with a goal, whether it's rural or urban, of places that you're normally going to go and things that you're normally going to do. We need to have the vaccine there. I also think we need to incentivize it. I think that's working with companies about, if you show up for your vaccine, for a place that's going to receive a certain amount of dollars for administering it, can they offer you a gift certificate in the store for things you're already going to do? So we're going to have to get creative moving forward. There's no question to reach different people. I do believe one thing that we are seeing that's a real positive in our urban communities is a lot of community leadership and outreach from folks that are already trusted leaders in the community that are out working really hard in tandem with us and really making a big difference. And that gives me a lot of hope and optimism there. We have many of the same in rural areas, but then we also have some of the areas where we see the least amount of people taking the vaccines are ones where we saw local leaders push back against what we were doing to protect people. And if you see enough of that and someone has beaten that drumbeat long enough, again, it's going to make it harder to then convince people to get vaccinated. And so we're going to need help both from those that have disagreed with us as we've gone along and those that have agreed with us to get it done. Certainly, I think that there are some similarities in rural and urban areas where we need more people to take it more quickly. But I think there's some nuance too. Sarah Ladd from the Courier-Journal.
Yes, thank you. So regarding this new study that estimates 1 in 3 COVID survivors were diagnosed with a neurological or psychiatric condition within 6 months of infection, are we seeing that in Kentucky, and what can be done to address it? Thank you.
Sarah, that's an interesting study, and I'm still looking at it. You know, what it suggests is more people suffer from anxiety and some other conditions coming out of it. And it'll be really interesting to see if that's the trauma having gone through it, if that is what people have seen and lived through and witnessed around them, if it is directly caused by the virus. I do think the study is so important, though, for us to know that this is so much more likely in folks that have had the virus, and whether it's a doctor treating that individual, whether it's a pastor talking to them about what's going on. This is really important knowledge so that people can get the help and probably the medical help that they need. And we've been saying all along, and Dr. Stack's been saying all along, we don't know the long-term repercussions of this. We're seeing them now. More long haulers. We've had community leaders that are no longer with us because of what this virus can do to you. And now we're seeing this, which, you know, we know that it's impacted the brain. And what it ought to say to us is, first, we owe a duty to everybody who's had it that's still struggling to give them the best care that we can. But we also ought to make sure nobody else gets it, right? Even folks that live, which most people do, we're now seeing, again, it has real health impacts. So get vaccinated. Continue to wear your mask until we get to the end. And don't be cavalier. Because while you may think that it's not going to hurt you, the person you could spread it to could be suffering from this. I do think this is the first of many of studies that we're going to see on long-term impacts of first the virus and what the virus physically does. But then I think we'll see studies on what this virus has psychologically and emotionally done to us. We got to defeat it, but then we got to take years, I think, healing ourselves and others too. John Boyle from WFPL.
Hi, Governor. I haven't been on in a couple of weeks, so I apologize if you already addressed this, but I did want to hear your reaction or your thoughts on the plans for the Kentucky Derby this year and whether you plan on attending.
So I believe the Kentucky Derby can be done safely if the COVID rules are enforced, and I believe that they will be. With the number of people who are vaccinated, along with a very strict mask rule, I believe that it can be done safely, and I will be there. I do have some concerns about the infield. Still talking to Churchill Downs about it, and I hope we can get to a place where I can be comfortable with that as well. But I'm going to be there supporting our state. And making sure that folks are wearing their masks and protecting each other. Now, if you plan to go to the Derby, go get vaccinated, right? Even with the way that we're going to do it, which I think is going to be a safe environment, we're still in a pandemic. So if you're going to go to something where there are a ton of people, get vaccinated. That ought to be on anybody's checklist who is planning on going, and it ought to be a big motivator to get out there and to get vaccinated. And listen, if people get vaccinated at the rate that they should, we'll have an opportunity to do more and more and bigger and bigger. And the Derby ought to just be one example. You know, my hope is with the amount of vaccines that are going to be available, if the Derby had been done a month later, we might be able to do even more and even better. But we have worked and we have seen different plans, and I do intend to be there. Chris Otts from WDRB.
Thank you, Governor. Several questions about the unemployment issue that was disclosed today. Did I understand Ms. Cuthers correctly to say that one fraudster entity changed the PIN numbers of 300,000 claimants? Secondly, how many claimants are going to have to re-register? So like what's the universe of active unemployment accounts currently? And if I understood this right, they have to get in the mail the PIN number. And considering that it's very difficult to impossible to reach someone with unemployment on the phone or through email, if people have issues with not receiving that letter in the mail, or their address has changed, or there's any issues with that, how can they address those? I mean, would they have to make a appointment to go in person, or how will you address issues concerning that mailing?
I'm going to ask Amy to address at least a couple of those questions. But let me first say that with the sophistication of this attack, it is some form of criminal syndicate. We believe a lot of it's coming from overseas, but it's impossible to know if it's one person or more, or one entity, which I think is the way of looking at it, or more. But we're seeing this all over the country, so it's more than one. The second part is, I hate that we have to do it, but there is no other option other than to let people's money get stolen, and we can't do that either for doing the right thing, for complying with the Department of Labor and what they expect, and ensuring that money goes to the people who really need it, as opposed to the criminals. I know you had a couple other questions that Amy wrote down. I'll turn it over to her.
Yeah, first off, like the governor said, we don't have any information that it is one single entity. In fact, it could be different entities that did the PIN changes and may have made bank account changes, because this information often gets bought and sold on the internet. So we don't know if it's one, if it's 10, if it's groups working together. We hope one day we will know that, and that law enforcement can trace it back. We just don't have that kind of information yet. As far as how many claimants will have to re-register, I don't have off the top of my head how many people are currently claiming weekly. I believe it is less than 25,000, but we will have to get that number for you. And yes, we know that mailing a PIN is going to be a hardship for people. We know that the Postal Service has sometimes issues of getting things out timely. That's why we're making every effort to generate those letters tomorrow, so that hopefully everyone will have them in their boxes either by the time it's reopened, or within a day or two after. We are exploring alternative resources for people if they don't get those PINs in a timely manner, to be able to reach out to UI and get help with those PIN resets. And we'll put any information about any additional resources for claimants up on the website as soon as we get those in place.
All right, next is Scott Brown from WKDZ Radio.
Thank you, Governor. How closely is the state monitoring the number of breakthrough cases, which are cases involving people who have contracted COVID-19 more than 2 weeks after full vaccination? How many of the cases has the state seen? And is there a magic number that would cause alarm among the state's medical experts and epidemiologists? And does the state have any plans to release these numbers on a regular basis, like the vaccination and case totals? Thank you.
So I don't have the number, and we'll look at and address the request on regular reporting and how that's collected. But let me address what would raise concern isn't necessarily that people could get infected again. It's what happens to them when they get infected. So in other words, the nursing home in Eastern Kentucky, where the variant came, for those that weren't vaccinated, a whole lot of people got it, and they got pretty sick. For those that had been vaccinated, a much smaller portion got it, and none of them got very sick. So we'd be looking at, first we want to know the number that can still get COVID, but do you even have a sniffle, right? And then how sick do you get? So what we're hearing over and over from especially the top epidemiologists in America is that these vaccines are really effective at preventing serious illness and death regardless of the variant at the moment. And that's what they were originally designed to do. They've turned out to be a whole lot better than the original design. We know that we have had some people that have gotten infected despite being vaccinated. We also think that number is fairly low. But let me see what we've got on that, and we'll provide that to you. David Winter from WKRC Local 12.
Yeah, sorry about that. Had to get to my unmute button. Thank you, Governor. I had asked you on Monday whether you were going to address the fact that people currently do not have to seek employment while they are collecting unemployment. You said that you would get back to us today in reference to that. What is your thought on people who are collecting unemployment without seeking a job?
Yeah, we plan on reinstating that requirement in the near future. Now, obviously, with us shutting down the system for 4 days, with the steps that people are going to have to go through, I think that we have to get through some of these cyber attacks first. But with the number of vaccines that are out there, with people's ability to be protected from serious illness and death, and with the economy picking up steam, and we believe that it really is in Kentucky. Some of the most recent announcements we've had, the boom that's going on in northern Kentucky, where we are seeing opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. It's time in the right way to be talking to people about there being opportunity out there, opportunity at a better job than maybe the one that they had to leave during COVID. That this post-COVID world is right around the corner, and now is the chance to do that plan and to start taking that action on how am I going to better myself and my family. I believe that Kentucky is going to have more opportunity than we could have ever dreamed of in this new world, where the density of LA and New York is no longer something that people look for. So we are going to expect here in the near future. We have to give a heads up to folks ahead of time, but here in the near future to reinstate that and to ask people, again, if you are collecting unemployment, so we understand it's been a pandemic, but coming out of it, let's get you back to work. Let's get you in a job that you are excited about. There's a lot of people out there hiring. And so, yes, the administration will move in that direction. But it's not right to do it when we have to shut down the system for the next 4 days. But it's going to come in the near future. All right, everybody, I promised one of the shortest updates, and we went 55 minutes. So I should have learned probably a year ago not to suggest that we were going to go short. But listen, a year and a month or a couple months, we're still here. We are strong, resilient Kentuckians. Get vaccinated. None of us want to continue this difficult journey that we've been on, and there is such a better world ahead of us. How quickly we get to that better world, whether we roar out of this pandemic or stumble or crawl, all depends on how fast you get vaccinated. If you're not worried about yourself and COVID, think about your neighbor, think about your grandparents, think about your friends and others that don't have that luxury. Think about your values and your faith about taking care of your neighbors. Think about wanting to go to a packed restaurant or not have a curfew on restaurants or bars. All that is possible. And again, right around the corner, if everybody will go out and get vaccinated. Remember, 11,000 spots available at U of L's Cardinal Stadium. Vaccination, can we put up a clinic next week alone? Again, thousands in Bowling Green, in outside of Lexington, in Corbin, in Western and in Eastern Kentucky. It's there. The opportunity to be protected and to emerge from this difficult time is right there. Let's just do the smart thing. Let's get the vaccines and then let's sprint into our future. We will see you Monday at 4 o'clock. Thanks.